Hello and welcome to the Morning Skate podcast. I am Matt Moody, joined by DJ Mitchell, here to talk about the Tuesday, January 9th NHL Daily Fantasy Slate. DJ, January 6th is come and gone. Of course, that being Adam Beckman bobblehead night for the Iowa Wild. Still no Adam Beckman in the NHL, so the clock's ticking, but I hope you celebrated momentous day there in Iowa this weekend. How's your weekend? How you doing?
Yeah. And the Cincinnati Cyclones had like the paint the town red night on, and people were like, "Are you really doing this?" And they're like, "Wait, why? Why not? Why wouldn't we?" So yeah, no, momentous. My weekend was, I don't know, pretty. It was pretty normal. Where like I thought it was going to be a great weekend, and I was up a decent clip of money, and then I went into Sunday, and I was like, "All right, I'm loading up for football," and I got absolutely cranked in football, and really on the entire slate for hockey as well. So a great weekend spoiled by Sunday. But no, I'm looking forward to the weekend ahead. A lot to do with hockey, lots going on. And as right before we clicked record, a big trade. So why don't you take us through that?
Yeah, incredible. It actually was a jaw dropper. Apparently, according to Frank Valley, Cutter Gauthier told the Flyers he would not be signing with them. So he got traded to Anaheim in return for Jamie Drysdale and a second round pick. So clearly, Jamie Drysdale is a here and now NHL, like an NHL player, but also a very, he's a top prospect. He's already getting premium offensive minutes for that Ducks team. He heads into a pretty nice situation in Philly. So, we do have the Ducks on the slate. We'll cover how, we should expect Minchikov and Fowler to sort of pick up the slack on the power play one and offensively and whatnot. But also, Cutter Gauthier is like going to be a fantasy stud, given his track record so far and given his draft status. So, a, a really impactful trade, very interesting. Any additional thoughts beyond that? I mean, I know you're a resident World Junior Championship watcher, so Cutter Gauthier, pretty good, huh?
He seems good. I mean, it's always hard to tell, and I really want to be like, I don't want to be hot take-ish about this because it would be kind of just useless, but I do think that oftentimes, especially I know I'm guilty of this, but you look at your own prospects and you say they're better than anyone else could possibly conceive, and then a lot of times it doesn't work out. I think Cutter Gauthier is really good. So I'm expecting him to be a very impactful player, but Jamie Drysdale is an impactful player right now, today. And the Flyers could use him for sure right now, today. Their defense went from incredibly bad last year to incredibly good this year, and this doesn't make it any worse. So, like, while I understand being frustrated losing arguably their top prospect, they did get better today. They are a playoff team, and is Cutter Gauthier going to be a 40 goal scorer? Probably not. Is he going to be a 30 goal scorer? It's potentially there. Is he probably going to be a 25 goal scorer? I think that's as of right now, I don't know how else you could say anything else. And I know I am incredibly biased when it comes to the Sabres, and I was saying that Devin Levi was going to save the franchise. Okay, so all of this to say I'm an idiot. Why don't we get to the slate?
Perfect. Yeah, we do have 10 games. I don't have anything to
to add
update
on
on my
that, or
weekend.
you good? No, okay.
No, I got nothing. I
You
mean,
don't.
it's
Nothing
really,
on your
really
weekend. You don't want to talk
exciting.
about the Bills?
But I mean, I guess that happened. Yeah, it's cool. The one of the best teams in football was one of the best teams in football at the end of the year. Okay, cool. Well, we got there. Just more tipsy turvy than maybe it should have been. Um, yeah, I don't know. Whatever. It's football. Who cares? I had a rare 5 slate losing day yesterday, so I'm pretty not wanting to discuss yesterday whatsoever. Just main slate afternoon
No.
NFL, and then early main hockey showdown till enter hockey loss. Actually, six slates. Hold on, because the Bill showdown slate also. So there we go. Yeah, not a banner day for me yesterday. So I'm ready to move on. So let's get to the slate. Um, yeah, DJ, do you want
Yep.
to take us
We
through the
got
10 games we
10
have
games.
on the docket?
Yeah, it's Seattle, Buffalo, LA, Tampa, San Jose, Toronto, Vancouver, the Islanders, Anaheim, who we just discussed, will not have Jimmy Drysdale, Nashville, Florida, St. Louis, Columbus, Winnipeg, Edmonton, Chicago, Boston, Arizona, Ottawa, and the Flames. And there's a metric ton of news I skipped along the way here. There's a lot going on with all of these teams. So I honestly don't even know if it's worth trying to pinpoint every one of them. I think every game had something that I was like, well, that's important. Well, that's important. So why don't we just get into it after you tell us about where we might be putting bets in and or playing DFS as well.
Sure, yes. As always, this podcast is brought to you by DraftKings. Um, Actually, let's hold the read for a minute because I completely forgot that we have a new ad read for 2024. So let's do it after the first game. But um, in any case, we do have 10 games. I think as far as an ownership perspective, we should obviously expect Toronto to be incredibly owned. They have a home matchup with San Jose. Um, I think that's I mean, maybe we have Edmonton on the road in Chicago as well. Though, that's a road matchup, not a home matchup. So your mileage may vary. Boston takes on Arizona, but it's a back-to-back, so I don't think that's going to be as piled on. And Winnipeg at home to Columbus seems like a good spot. I honestly don't know if the team total will get there, though. Obviously, we have a ton of respect for the Jets around here, and they're a one-line team, so it could be very interesting from a projection standpoint. But I do think Edmonton and Toronto are just going to be your team jam them in, and it's going to be really important to find good values. So anything else off the top before you take us into Seattle and Buffalo?
Nope, nope. I think that's all. That's all good stuff. Seattle and Buffalo. Did you hear me okay? Oh yeah, I think I'm sorry. I think I froze for half a second there.
Yes.
It's very value, very. I would say there's a lot of value in this game. Like off the cuff, it seems easy to see it. Do you want to pull up? Let me add your screen to the stage quick for anyone that wants to view this. Just to, are you ready for that or not yet?
Yes. Yeah, I'm happy. Yeah, I'm happy to share.
Okay.
By the way, we're
Um,
posting this on YouTube as well after the fact. So, if we're not going to use many visuals, trust me, this is a podcast first and foremost. But if you want to tag along, you can see us. I'm saying hi. I'm waving, and I'm screen sharing some stuff. But yeah, this shows a very substantial matchup favoring Edmonton, and then LA, Florida, Seattle here, which
yep.
kind of surprising, but I'm
Yeah.
guessing that's what we're going to talk about.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, again, Buffalo is in the bottom half percent. It's not that they're completely out of consideration, but it is kind of a situation where it is hard oftentimes to pinpoint exactly what you want to play on Seattle. We talk about that a lot. I've kind of become more accustomed to picking, we'll get to, I'll just say it. Like the Seattle line, I oftentimes end up landing on revolves around Tolvin and Bergstrand. I think they're the best finishers, and I think in a contest of 10 games, they're the ones that break the slate. McCann is, around that realm as well, but I like the correlation you can normally get almost every single slate with Tolvin and Bergstrand. So it's kind of on one hand, I think the matchup favors Seattle being a little bit better. I don't know if I trust them to break a 10-game slate, especially with a lot of teams that I really, really like being something I want to target more. But again, like if you're playing Edmonton, are people getting to Seattle, right? So another way to kind of pivot off of the chalk. I kind of talking myself in a circle right now already, and I've already I know I'm going to have the same debate tomorrow. Where is Seattle a good play at their current price? Again, Tolvin 4,300, Bjorkstrand 5K, Riker Evans is back up, so maybe he's on a power play or something, but Dunn is 5K. It doesn't feel like there's as much value as I'd like here, but there is some value. So are you considering Seattle one-offs? Are you considering putting a couple pieces together?
I mean, we'll see where things wind up, but I do think Seattle depth is. I mean, Seattle's going to have a lot of ownership because of the stress in putting together an Edmonton and or Toronto lineup. There's just no way to play without multiple sub 4K pieces. And when you can correlate them and they look pretty good, like these Seattle guys do, that's something that I think we should be focusing on. So I don't think we're going to get unknown Seattle. I think there are ways you could deploy it intelligently. Keep a finger on the pulse of ownership. If Seattle's going to be 15% owned across the board, I don't think I want to play a 15% owned. Seattle whatever third line you want to call the Yanni Gord line or something. But at least look to Seattle for some options. Um, With that said, on the Buffalo side of things, this game is 6.5, so, like, there is some expectation of goals, and despite the relatively stout defensive play from Seattle, Buffalo has been rather good, as of late, rather up-tempo as of late. They've finally won 2 games in a row, so, DJ, this franchise is saved, all hail Terry Pegula, um,
Miracles.
but
Mhm.
yeah, I don't think there's I don't think there's a
Do
good
you think
reason to not
Buffalo? Oh,
play, we have that delay thing going on again, which is very unfortunate.
yeah,
Um, the podcast people
just
though
go
will
on. You just
avoid
talk.
this, so yeah. Um, do you have do you have any interest in some Buffalo pieces, be it the top line at their relatively inexpensive salaries relative to the other, like Tage Thompson is 7K, Matthews is 10.2, McDavid is 9.6. Now there's lots of centers in the 7K range, but does like Tage Thompson and his line mates interest you? Can I interest you in some depth Buffalo to go with these, chalk Toronto, Edmonton pieces, anything like that of interest?
Uh yeah, a little bit. Like it's not. I think I would say this. I'm only gonna plan on playing Tage. The second line's coming up in price. People are playing it. It's not to an extreme degree by any extent, but I don't really think on this slate you're gonna get a winning score out of anything outside of Tage Thompson. Last time I played Tage, it was just Tage and Darlene. I should have played Skinner with it, right? And like you're gonna find those situations where, like at 7K, if Tage does get there, I do think that you can make an argument that you want to pair him with Skinner and Darlene if possible, or just Skinner. And maybe I don't know, Tuck is in the realm, but I think I'm better like stacking it through Tage. Like I think that's all I'm really interested in this game. I could like maybe be convinced if I'm playing Seattle as well to take a second look at a guy like Jordan Eberle at 3,700. Like that's another guy that I just feel like is getting kind of not only unlucky, but like I feel like there's at least a case for positive shot regression for him as well. Um, Again, this game is interesting, but I can't sink my teeth into anything and feel really good about it. I don't know if ownership's really going to get there on Buffalo, but it probably should be higher than it is. Is probably the way I'd put it. And if it is going to come in low, I'm going to be more interested. But if people are jamming Tage because of the 7K price and the obvious upside, then I think I'm going to stay away myself.
Okay. Yeah, that's perfectly reasonable. I do also kind of like it's tough because I think Edmonton Toronto will be so owned that the mid tier might just get wiped. But there are other spots in the mid tier that I think I prefer more than Buffalo, because I do have some respect for the way Seattle's playing as of late, and Joey Daccord is beatable at this point. So um, let's see here. I have the new read
LA, Tampa.
for
Oh, you ready? Do it now.
let's see, 1 second. All right, so yes, this podcast into 2024 is still sponsored by DraftKings, by the sportsbook, but also, if you're playing DFS, if you can play on the sportsbook, any way to support DraftKings, please do so on behalf of this show and the Hockey Podcast Network. We know hockey games move fast, but with DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NHL, you can score faster than anything happening on the ice. This week, new customers can bet $5 and get 200 instantly in bonus bets. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app with code THPN. New customers bet just $5 in the NHL and get 200 instantly in bonus bets. Only on DraftKings Sportsbook. Code THPN. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.1800gambler.net. In New York, call 8778-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-878-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly on behalf of Boot Hill and Casino in Kansas. There we go. In Kansas, it is. There we go. I was wondering about that. 21 plus. Age varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. See dkng.com/hockey for eligibility and deposit restrictions, terms, and responsible gaming resources. NHL and the NHL Shield are registered trademarks of the National Hockey League. All right, so there we go. Thank you to DraftKings for continuing to sponsor the show into the new year. And let's head on over to LA at Tampa. Um, on the LA side of things, they are still presumably rolling with their new line combinations. DJ, any news to report in that regard?
I didn't see anything out of LA today. No. So we're expecting it still to
Okay.
be Doughty on the first power play. They scored twice, so it's kind of like a lot of people were saying, well, "Is Brad Clark going to get rid of the top power play?" And Drew Doughty said, "No, no, thank you, sir. We're going to dominate." So Clark was playing last game. I expect him to stay in there over Jordan Spence. He had 16 minutes. Power play two, and then the same line configuration, which had Kaliev, Dano, and Fiala. Since we last talked, Kaliev is out of the doghouse.
Yes, good for that. I think it's possible Brant Clark does not, like doesn't play in this game. We don't know for sure though, so just keep an eye out for confirmed lines. The reason being, they ended up losing to Washington. I mean, that game was pretty crazy. I had a text from my buddy who's a Kings fan. He's like, "Dude, are you watching this game?" And it's during red zone, so I was not, because it was only on NHL Network. So I had the iPad with ESPN Plus and the Calgary game on, which was not as fun. But yeah, so LA seems like they should have won, but in any case, a lot of tempo. Brant Clark did next to nothing, but if he's playing, I still think he's a perfectly reasonable option. Um, I think I've read off his stats before on this program, but just in case I hadn't, he profiles as an incredible defensive or as an offensive defenseman. He was drafted 8th overall in 2021. As of last year he played in the OHL. He almost doubled the sort of like shot index for what you'd expect a player of his age to do in the OHL, which it's age adjusted for how being a 20-ish-year-old player in the OHL, but it's not position adjusted. And reminder, he's a defenseman, so like getting a ton of shots is impressive, and he recorded more points than he technically should have for players of his age as a defenseman. In the AHL, he's absolutely nuking. I believe he's top 5 among rookies in shots on goal in the AHL. And he's, leading their power play, doing absolutely everything you'd want from a top end defensive prospect. So if he's getting even power play 2 minutes, I think it's perfectly reasonable to spend 40 or 2,800 on Brant Clark. But playing 15 minutes, not getting power play one, he's not a lock it in type play like he would be in the other circumstance. So I do still have some interest in LA. The Kempe, Laferriere, Dubois line treated me well last week. They're a bit more expensive, about 1,000 collectively more than they were previously. So I think I'm with you in that I'm sticking to power play stacks, if anything, on LA. But they are, somewhat interesting. I think Adrian Kempe's too cheap for his ceiling, and he stacks nicely with Kevin Fiala. You could even mix in, like a Dubois, Fiala, Kempe, and just sort of say, Kempe gets there and he does it with a little bit of everything, and the prices are perfectly fair. Like they're not going to hurt you at all on LA. Any interest in Tampa here?
I mean, there's one reason. I guess there's two. So, I guess first and foremost, what has LA's problem been as of late? This was a team that I believe set the NHL record for road wins in a row. I mean, absolutely rolling. It seemed like they weren't going to be stopped. How many games have they dropped in a row? Didn't they drop like I'm trying to pull it up on the fly here. They've lost 3, 4, 5 in a row. 5 in a row. And you might be saying to yourself, have they been really bad? No, the goaltending finally got back to normal, and that's been about the size of it. Like you give up 4 on 2 expected, you're going to lose to Washington sometimes. That's just the way the news goes. I think they're totally fine, but if you are going to say, okay, whatever, right? Like I'm going to play Tampa because I think LA isn't as good, and they've lost 5 in a row, and they're on the road. Whatever you want to talk yourself into, it is Point, Stamkos, and Kucherov all together, 5-on-5 in the power play. They are bringing back Chernak into the fold. So it's Hedman, Radish, Fernak, DeHaan in the top 4 for defense. I don't think that gets rid of Hedman in any capacity. Like it's not like they're Sergachev is an actual guy that takes up a lot of offensive usage. Fernak is not, so I don't think it changes him too much. All that being said, you can stack Tampa 1. I don't think it's my favorite. I still really respect LA, and I'm just not betting against goaltending for no good reason. So I think I'm out on it. I do like LA, like you said, a good bit here, just fine. And they seem a little bit easier. But Tampa 1 isn't really that expensive. I mean, Kucherov makes it expensive, but like 98 for Kucherov, and then 6,800, 6,700 for Stamkos and Point, respectively. Like, it's doable.
Yeah, I mean, it's very clearly just an anti-Toronto, anti-Edmonton leverage point because, like you said, Kucherov is 9,800. That's a pretty absurd price to pay to not get the premium matchups that McDavid and Matthews are in. But I get
Right.
it. I understand. And I'm not going elsewhere in this lineup. You know, Michael Eyssimont is technically on the second line, but uh, he's been there before and not really gotten minutes. So despite having really strong rates on a permanent basis, I kind of want to see them prove that they'll give him 15 minutes before I sort of go into punting on a 10-game slate with Isamont. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
He
I'm
feels
guessing
like,
Thursday this tune might change, but
yeah, he feels like what Daniel Sprong kind of used to be when he got 10 minutes every night. Like Daniel Sprong gets a little bit more run now, and just maybe a
yeah, he
less
gets 11.
finishing ability, but similar rates. Wait, what?
He gets 11 now. Sprong does.
Yeah. Yeah, right. No, I again, like less finishing, but similar shot rates, like good, but yeah, it is a 2,800 punt that exists in a vacuum. But we can move on to obviously the one of the most premium matchups on the entire slate. You've already hinted at it a couple times. It's Toronto at home against San Jose. Austin Matthews is fucking 10,200. My brain can't looking at that price. It just seems insane to me. Marner 7K to go with him. The $11.5 million man, William Nylander, as of I guess starting next year, he has resigned with the team. He's playing with Tavares. Like, there's clearly two angles to go here. You go your Matthews angle, you go your Nylander angle, or you try to put them both together, Matt. That might be just the secret skeleton key that unlocks absolutely nothing because you've spent all your cap. But do you have any idea of how you'd want to attack Toronto if you've decided I am going to play them and waste every last morsel of cap I have, and now I have to play Michael Eyssimont?
Yeah, I think I think it's Matthews until further notice. But yeah, it's certainly difficult, and again, the ownership here will be extreme. So it's I don't think it's a must play. The rates are down ever so slightly for Matthews. So the difference in expected fantasy points between him and the other players at the top of the slate, particularly those like in the 7K range, is not as dramatic as I don't even know if you might think, but just like it's so much more money. The $3,000 between like an Alex Barkov and Austin Matthews, like you are getting so much more safety with Matthews here, but like there are options cheaper that are very, very good. So like I'm not really willing to sacrifice the rest of my lineup to jam in, Matthews, honestly. So you could use a guy like Matthew Nyes to try and bridge the gap. I'm not going to do that. I just don't believe that this is in any way linked to like an awesome Matthew ceiling night. Is Matthew Nyes getting me there? And he's not 2,500. He's 3,500. So this is very much you pick between Toronto and Edmonton, you jam them the hell in, you find scrubs that fit, and you move on. Like I don't really think you can get too much out of me in this instance. So I think I lightly side with Edmonton, and thus am I guess kind of fading Toronto here, which isn't really a fade, but it's just like look, he can get 50 and bury me, but if Austin Matthews at 10.2 gets even 35 points, one, you're not guaranteed that his line mates get there with him, so it's a less powerful stack. And two, like I might be able to get 25 from a 7K player and fit in a good second stack with with that player in his stack and still end up winning the tournament anyway. So yeah, I think Matthews is a great play, but not quite at the level that I need at his current salary. Anything, especially beyond that?
No, I think that everything you said makes sense. I really, the one point I'd make is like you just said though, like he has to get like at least an insane amount of points to bury you, and for that reason, I would actually just say I'm playing the whole line, playing nice. I just if he gets 50, you know what I mean? There's no way Nyes is not coming through with it. And like, I do think enough people out there just won't do it for a stupid reason. Like Matthews is going to have so much more ownership than Matthew Nyes. And like, he needs to get 50. I don't think I'm going to play it either, but I'm just saying, I kind of want to just like, I'm piggyback that. I would do that personally. Did you say you'd do that? I don't even remember now. Did you say you'd play Nyes? I feel like you were saying you don't want to play Nyes, so
No,
you're not playing Matthews.
I'm not. Yeah, I'm
Okay,
not
whatever.
interested. He doesn't add anything. You can't even luck into a blocks bonus with him, and the shots are just not there. So, yeah, I'm pretty much out.
Yeah,
'Cause I
San
think I
Jose
need a
notorious
$2,500
for.
player.
I mean, he's getting 15 minutes. I don't know. I personally like. I whatever. We can differ on this. You know, it's our podcast and we can disagree. I'm going all the way if I'm playing Matthews because if he gets 50, I think Nyes is going to be in the optimal more than likely. So but again, at this point, it's not my favorite. I have no interest in the Sharks whatsoever. I know that Logan Couture, once again, they're saying it's like incredibly close. On the 4th, it was maybe available for the upcoming road trip. So keep an eye out tomorrow for Logan Couture, who could be returning. Don't know at this point. Unless if you saw something I didn't see.
Nope, that's all I was gonna say. Couture remains out. This matchup is obviously brutal for San Jose. You know, goaltending is goaltending, but there's nothing obvious that I want to take advantage of. So,
Yeah.
you know, yeah, like you can
And
possibly punt Kalen
and his
Addison.
it's not only goaltending is goaltending, it is a revenge narrative, Matt. Martin Jones is starting tomorrow against San Jose.
Oh, you're right.
So you also want to tempt.
Didn't this happen?
I mean, 8,500, lock him in. Sorry, what?
Well, didn't this happen the other day too? Yeah, they were in San Jose on Saturday, so you know it's not as exciting. But yes, 4-1 victory, easy win for Martin Jones. If you want your guaranteed 18.6 at 8,500, here's your guy, Martin Jones. There you go. Okay. Anyway, we know that we're expecting power play 1 to be Hurdle, Duclair, Hoffman, Eklund, Addison. So if you really wanted to go back to the Hoffman Addison, you know, mini well, it's okay. Addison has mixed in 2 blocks bonuses in his last 4 games, but it's not something that I'm prioritizing by any means. So I'm good to move on to Vancouver at the Islanders. Vancouver is rolling out the top line of JT Miller, Pedersen, and Besser. We're expecting that to stick as it is. So right away, I'm intrigued. It's a back-to-back, so I imagine ownership will be pretty low. This is the sort of stuff I mean, where Pedersen, Besser, Miller are all in the 7K range, and they're not great value-wise, but stacking them in full still allows you to play a decent second stack with it if you would like. You know, it's not great, but it's also not terrible. So Vancouver right away stands out for that reason. No one else on Vancouver interests me. Any interest in Vancouver or the Islanders on the other side of this matchup?
You know, I to this point I hadn't mentioned any of the betting lines because I was waiting till we got to this point. All 4 games that we've mentioned so far, including this one, are 6 over unders, and all of them are right in between -120 and -125. So these first 4 games are incredibly low totals. There's some others on the slate that are in the 6 range and one even lower, but we have been talking about games that aren't really projected all that well. This is probably the first one that I think the books are the most wrong on. I could easily be convinced of any, like you could, you know, again, goaltending kind of driven a little bit here and there in different capacities, yada, yada. This game, even with the back-to-back, I think is a bit off at that -120. And I think the Vancouver one is just, it feels like better Buffalo one to me. A little bit more, less ownership is probably the right word. The words that I want to use here. I don't know if there's actually anything ultra like important to say. I think this line is it's rolling right now. I mean, they have played 2 games together and are absolutely cranking everyone. They've already scored all 2 goals tonight against the Rangers after one when we're recording now. They just came off of a slate breaking performance. I have to imagine they had a ton against whatever they played, the garbage team. I can't even remember right now. Did they have like 4 against someone? Who am I blanking on?
It was the Devils.
Yeah, right. Garbage. They don't have Jack Hughes. Yeah. The Jack Hughes Devils are bad. So I'm just kidding. They're fine. I just again they're not that expensive. Like Brock Besser at 7,100. Like what does the man have to do? What? they're not going to do it. They're just going to keep him here. This is where he lives. I'm in. Like I am definitely in on this stack, and I don't think it's going to be popular at all because people fade the back to back, B the Islanders get this stigma still that they're boring and whatever, and C it's too expensive to afford Austin Matthews. It's too expensive to afford McDavid. So people just aren't going to pivot here. So I think it's actually like the Skolansky Bucks play of the night, whether it gets there or not.
I agree with that. I think people will be very into Ilya Sorokin. He checks in at, let's see, 7,800, sub 8K, against the back-to-back team. He's on the Islanders. People love to jam that. So I think that's, obviously pretty good. The Islanders themselves are kind of interesting to me. Vancouver's been better defensively than we give them credit for. But I imagine at home that this Barzell line is going to get, a matchup without the top line. They've sort of strewn away from throwing out the identity line at teams' top comp. Let's see. I'm actually not even sure the last time the Islanders were at home because they were just on this long road trip. But yeah, let's see. Perfect at last time they played Pittsburgh, they got killed, but let's just see how they match things up. It was largely the Cizikas Clutterbuck line against Crosby, so I guess there you go. So they are throwing the identity line at these guys, meaning that I guess either of Nelson or Horvat, while they'll get some shifts against the top line, they should get a lot against the underbelly of Vancouver, which again has been very good. So like I can't really destroy it that much. But like the second line has Andrei Kuzmenko on it, and we imagine that remains the same. So like it's not that scary defensively, and it's getting slightly more reasonable to play a guy like Matthew Barzal. He's down from 6,600 down to 63. So like we're slowly getting there. It's still not great. Dobson 7,200, Horvat 6,900, but it's closer, and I think it's still reasonable on a 10-game slate. I think Vancouver will be able to score goals here, and I think that the Islanders will be able to match them. So I like the spot. I don't love it though, so I'm good to move on. If you don't have anything else.
Yeah, I think we largely agreed overall. And I guess for your DraftKings Sportsbook, I think the over here is going to be fine. We can move over to Anaheim at Nashville, right? That's up next. Yep, Anaheim and Nashville. In Nashville, the Ducks will obviously be without Jamie Drysdale, as I've already said. They're overall pretty cheap outside of Frank Petrano. I definitely someone that gets Frank Petrano on a small slate, 7,200 on a big slate, a little bit more difficult, but are there pieces here in Anaheim? I think we should just start with them that you are interested in. Like, are you Troy Terry's back in the mix after he came back for his first game, 17 minutes, so it didn't take long to get reacclimated. I guess I'll just gonna let you talk. Is there anything here that you're really keening in on? I feel like I'm kind of leading you to one answer, but let me hear what you gotta say.
Yeah, so without Drysdale, we are going to expect Minchikov to pick back up the power play one job, and to also pick up some of the minutes that he stopped getting as soon as Drysdale re-entered the lineup. Reminder that earlier this year, Minchikov was, not overly likely to see 20 minutes, but that was in his range of outcomes. And recently that's been more of, 12 to maybe like 15, 16, like 18 is his high from the last 10 games as I'm scrolling. So I do think the role grows for Minchikov. He clearly is NHL caliber. And so 3,800 is a discount for an NHL caliber player who we expect to man the top power play unit. The matchup is fine. It's not great. But if there's anywhere to attack, I think it is the penalty kill, or it's the power play for Anaheim. And with that, we still have a very cheap Killorn, Zegras, Terry. If you want to do that, I kind of, yeah, I'm not really sure actually who I'd want to pick if I had to pick one of these guys. But I think like a two-man or like a three-man, say like Zegras, Killorn, Minchikov, or Zegras, Terry, Minchikov, something like that could make sense. Just power play stack this up. But was there someone who I mentioned or who I didn't mention that you wanted to talk about?
Sorry, I was muted. I was clicking buttons to try to show the Lions last game as we were talking about them for a second. Yeah,
Mhm.
no, nothing really like incredibly stands out. I agreed with everything you were saying about the power play, which is why I'm just kind of looking at Zegers and Terry myself. They feel cheap on this
Great.
slate. I am just never going to be afraid to attack Nashville no matter what. So I leading that way, and Minchikov is also very solid. I don't know if I'm going all the way, like in saying he's definitely being included, but I do like him. I think if I see him paired with Fowler instead of Drysdale, who's obviously not going to be paired with Fowler, that's when I might say, okay, this comes up even another notch because they're just going to play Cam Fowler no matter what. So he'll just play no matter what,
Yep.
and that's sort of what I'm dealing with here. So yeah, I'm in on it. I'm not also not saying I couldn't even game stack this though. Let's just say Anaheim is getting there without a doubt. We know where it's coming from on the other side, so I could very easily also consider a game stack. And I don't think I need to go pass it back to you. Like it's Forsberg and Yossi. We've seen Nyquist maybe come back to life a little bit. He scored a nice little goal where he stole the puck right off of, I can't remember whose stick, was just like, I'll take that and score. Thank you very much. I was watching some of that Nashville Dallas game. Who the heck was it? It's gonna bother me now, but it was someone bad, and I was mad about it because I was like, "What are you doing?" Um, yeah. Point being, I could really go either way in this game, and I could actually see myself playing four players, like I just said, like Zegers, Terry, Yossi, Forsberg.
Yeah. Forsberg has been, excellent. There's nothing to that. And again, he's 2,000 cheaper than Kucherov. He's 2,400 less than Matthews. So like you do get some substantial savings off of these top end guys in a pretty good matchup. Anaheim's no good defensively. Like they've lost. Like they've tanked. It's fair to say that they are actively tanking too by trading Drysdale for a player who's not an NHLer. So like they're gearing up for the future. They're not good now, so like there's no harm in attacking them with good players. I know we're getting, well, actually, I believe we're getting Cody Glass back into the lineup. Is that right? Yeah, he last
So
played on the
yes, yep, yep,
29th.
yep.
So let's see. Do we have who his line
I
mates
are,
are?
I
Okay,
retweeted the
between Mike
lines.
McCarron and
Yep,
Phil
I retweeted
Tomasino.
them. I can find
Perfect.
them.
So I like the two man of Glass and Tomasino. Tomasino is 2,800. Glass is the dead minimum, 2,500. I would expect both those guys to get secondary power play time, but there's a pretty good, like these guys should not be minimum salary in a good matchup. So like, there's really no harm, even if they don't like crush. They allow you to fit in the McDavids, the Matthews, and you get two guys that are correlated, and if they hit, hooray. If not, well, that's the expectation, but at least they allowed you to fit in, the nuclear ceiling guys of the night, and I would be okay with that mini as well. So, anything else here before we move
I
on?
mean, I mean, is Guryanov or anyone? I mean, he's playing with like Sissons and Parsonins, and you'd think they'd give them a similar, if not more, run than a guy like Glass. And you think the ceiling exists still. I know he had 14 minutes and no power play run last game, which is
Mhm.
incredibly disappointing. And obviously, I just made the case against him. But does anybody else here like a Guryanov? At I believe was he? I don't think he's minimum anymore. I think he came up like 100 or something,
He
but
is.
um, like his
Guryanov's the
minimum.
minimum because he wasn't on last slate.
Oh, okay. Yep. So a guy at the minimum, you have two shots on goal. I'm not gonna look up the attempts right now, but again, it's like, okay, I like Glass playing with these guys that are, Tomasino could eat some of his shots, and they play the least amount of run, like Brennan and McCarron and Tomasino. Whereas like Guryanov at least got some 5-on-5 run with guys that are not really shot first players. I don't know. I mean, it's a minimum salary play. I feel like at least we should mention it because it's a guy I've always been a fan of in DFS, and it sucks that he's been not even here, and B, wasn't even on a power play last game. But um,
Yeah,
I don't
that's
know.
Guryanov was really only ever good on the power play, so it's
Yeah,
one of those things where I'm not overly enthused by it. I know Tomasino will be on the power play. He's a prospect-ish guy, so I don't think Glass steals his job, and I think they do value Cody Glass more than, say, Juuso Parssinen, who is currently on the second unit, so it's not that far of a reach to tell me that they both get secondary power play time for a team that actually uses their second unit somewhat. Like, it's not Edmonton, where they're gonna get 10 seconds of time, per power play. So, let's move over to Florida, St. Louis. Another, pretty good matchup here for the fighting Sam Reinhardts. Somehow I guess Barkov and Rodriguez escaped serious injury because they returned for Saturday's game after getting hurt early in Thursday's game against Vegas. So, or it might have been Friday, Sunday, but whatever it was. Barkov and Reinhardt are simply too cheap for how they've played. Like, I mean, full stop. They've been incredible. Sam Reinhardt shooting at an ungodly 27%. They call that the Kuzmenko. But he's a player who, has tangible positive impacts on both ends of the ice. Um, so like this price tag just makes no sense to me. There's even a chance Reinhardt lucks his way into a blocks bonus because he's playing the PK. He's picked up multiple blocks in 3 of his last 5 games. So like, I can't really poke any holes in it. Any holes that you would like to poke in this Florida 1 spot? Do you prefer Florida 2 now that Matthew Tkachuk seems to be cooking again? What are your thoughts on Florida here?
I don't know. I really like. I mean, I think every single podcast that St. Louis is on, I make the same point that I bet against them all the time, and I love stacking against them and all this garbage. Yeah, you could bet against them again because check it out, another stack that's right in the 7K range. Both, Florida won a little bit more, both 7,400 Barkov and Reinhardt, and you get a bit of a savings from a guy like Erod at 4K who's clearly useful. 6,500 for Verhaeghe, 6,400 for Matt Tkachuk. And of course, Brandon Montour continues to be the exact same. I do think I finally it's like in like a love movie where the guy finally like gets the picture, gets the hint, like she doesn't love you, bro. You got to give it up. I don't know. There's probably movies out there like that. I think that happened with me in betting on Brandon Montour when they scored 8 goals and he didn't get a single point. He's 4,800, and I am broken. I don't get it. I don't know what to say, and I don't get it. You made the good point. You already described it. The Clippy you said wrote about it. I think I just end up, I personally, I think I end up on Reinhard Barkov, I guess, to answer the question briefly without going into my self-pity. But I decided to go into my self-pity anyways. And just say I'm probably not going to I'm just going to stay away from Montour at this point. And he's going to go for 5 points.
The underlines for St. Louis aren't great. And neither are the goals, honestly, which is kind of surprising. But over their last 10, they've been like a league average team that's very good defensively, or like very low paced. That's what I mean to say. They're not scoring a ton, they're not generating a ton. They're allowing a light bit above average, but they're allowing fewer goals than average. And they've won 7 straight, and it's not like they've played bad actually, they lost to Pittsburgh in the middle there, but, they've played really well against this kind of murderer's row of teams as of late. Dallas, they beat 4-3, they lost to Tampa 6-1, following that up beating Florida 4-1 in Florida. They beat Chicago 7-5, who cares? They hold Dallas to 1 goal in a 2-1 win. They lose 2-1 to Colorado at the very last second. Pittsburgh beats them 4-2, and then Vancouver and Carolina 2-1 victories over them. So there is something there, that the new coach bump, whatever you want to say, like this is a respectable team. So, Florida's still of interest to me. I think they're a juggernaut, but it's not the slam dunk case that I think, you might look at St. Louis without Justin Falk and think, yep, like jam them. They're terrible defensively. That just really hasn't been the case. So, still worth a sprinkle, still worth considering, like Barkov Reinhardt for sure. I still love the duo, but it's not the slam dunk spot that I think, so just keep an eye on that. Make sure that they're not over projecting Florida here in this spot. All right, let's keep things going into Winnipeg at Columbus. Actually, did you want to play anyone on St. Louis? I'm going to guess no, but Jordan Kyrou at 5,600.
No, I
900,
yeah, I stay away from Florida. as a principal. Busnevich has been shooting a ton, 8 shot attempts per game over the last 5. We may have just missed the boat on that. Honestly, like I'm not sure if that's going to be ultra sustainable, and it's not something I'm going to bet on here against Florida. But I do think like I maybe and everything you just said, it's like keep that in mind for another slate. Like Florida's really good. I'm going to stay away. But yeah, let's move on to Columbus at Winnipeg, and it just shouldn't take that long. Like I'm not playing Columbus against Winnipeg. Winnipeg has just simply been too good defensively. It's not all goaltending here. Okay, Matt, you seem to have a different idea here yourself, maybe, but we can always differ on opinions. I can maybe try to convince myself to play Winnipeg, but I'm just not sure they're my favorite stack in a similar price range. We know where the offense is coming from on Winnipeg. I get that. It's a pretty good matchup, all considered. Not the best though. And I think again, like there's a lot of stacks in this range that feel a bit similar in many respects. I do think people will actually come on to Winnipeg more so than like the Vancouvers and stuff that I'm planning on playing. So Matt, is there something you want me to pull up first off before you get into whatever you're going to say? You kind of gave me a look for the people watching.
No, I was not intending to give any sort of look. I think I was itching the side of my mouth, honestly. But when you say it's not all
No.
goaltending in Winnipeg, that's very true. I mean, they're great defensively. They're even good offensively. So like, like goaltending hasn't hurt. I mean, their goaltending has not sprung a leak whatsoever. So like, yeah, they're going to have, some of the best numbers in the league when you can combine those two things. So they're still saving more goals than they should, but that doesn't mean you want to attack Columbus on a 10-game slate chock full of options. That's what I'll say. So I'm
Yeah.
fine Xing out Columbus if you want to mix in a 3K Adam Boakvist playing 20 to 24 minutes. I'm perfectly fine with that, but it's certainly not a must play by any means. On the Winnipeg side, it's pretty easy. I think it's Morrissey, Ehlers, Velarde, Mark Scheifele. Um, there's not a ton of reason to need to go cheaper. I think there's other options on the cheaper end of things that just will be better per dollar than these options. But if I had to pick one punt play, I guess it'd be Nate Schmidt. He's picking up secondary power play time. Has some good underlines over the last 10 games. Just putting pucks on net, blocking shots, sort of doing the stuff at 2,700. That's fine. It's whatever. If you need a punt, it's there. Good matchup. But really, it's the main guns for me in Winnipeg.
Okay. We could pretty simply move on, but I do have to ask one question. At which point am I allowed to say that it is the season of Nikolai Ehlers and I was right all along?
Let's wait for Kyle Connor to come back and for Nick Ehlers to not immediately fall back into a third line role.
Perfect. We're off to Edmonton and Chicago, where once again we have the Rockford. What are they? The Rockford. Oh man,
Ice Hogs.
Ice Hogs. The Rockford Ice Hogs taking to the ice. Last time they played the Calgary Flames, and I said, "Holy crap! Every Calgary Flame is minus 140 or better for a point. I'm going to bet like all of them." And I didn't make money, even though they scored 3 goals, and they just were all very concentrated and not how I would have liked it. And I don't think that I'm, taking that and putting it into this slate. Like this is a very, 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 very bad team in Chicago. I mean, just I don't need to, everyone's beaten into the ground. They are icing like 16 million in cap space. Like Nylander and Marner are going to be making more than this entire roster. Like I get it, whatever. Edmonton is unbelievable. Connor McDavid. I will just bring up Colin Blackwell. I don't know if it's going to get massively overlooked. He almost had a hat trick. He really should have. He missed the empty net twice. So also maybe he just sucks. I don't know. But they went 11-7. They played Kurashev, Dickinson, Reichel, Blackwell, Donato, and Gutman a ton. I think of that mix, I get like Kurashev is, while arguably the most talented in that mix, he's also very expensive. Dickinson is, I'm not paying 4,600 for Dickinson. So it's kind of like, okay, so Donato, Blackwell, like these are punts that are going to get big minutes and power play run. Donato is probably my favorite of the bunch. But, Cole Gutman, I honestly think there is at least a case to be made that he is at least in consideration. He was shooting before Bedard went out and the role got increased. So is there anyone You want me to? Did you pull up? Yeah, you pulled up Chicago Edmonton. Why don't I bring you to the stage here for a second so we can have the numbers if you're watching along as well. Is there anything you want to mention first and foremost on Chicago, and then just get over to what we're all really here to listen to and talk about?
I mean, not really, but here's Blackwell and Gutman. They're, above 7 over the last 10 in terms of expected fantasy points. They're right around that mark in actuals too, which is, never a bad thing. Because sometimes these bad players show up and oh wow, they're expected to get 9 fantasy points per game and they get 4, and it's like, well, okay, maybe that's because they suck. But Blackwell clearly had the ceiling game last time out. Again, it's 3,500, it's not 2,500, so I'm a little bit inclined to just go looking for more punts. The Cody Glass, Tomasino ilk, that duo saves you, almost 2,000 over Blackwell Gutman. And obviously, you're not doing 2v2s like that, but like it's just one of those things where I think the salary savings down to a true punt is better than betting on this terrible, terrible matchup. But yeah, McDavid incredible. He's back to his shooting form. He's never going to be a Matthews type shooter in terms of volume, but he's far closer to that than he was at the beginning of the season. And as a result, his expectation looks very much in line with Matthews, given his incredible playmaking ability and the success of his line mates. Well, he and his line mates to this point, where they are just absolutely nuking as far as their expecteds go. I mean, over the last 10, expected 4.5 expected goals per 60 minutes, like just absurd stuff. And that's not even including the power play, where they're just automatic. So McDavid, Hyman, Nugent Hopkins, I would prefer to go there over Draisaitl, honestly. And then, of course, you got to consider Evan Bouchard, who finally had a 3-point game. I think it had been a while since he had one of those. Yeah, since early December since he had one. So, he's in consideration, though his rates have dropped a little bit over the last 10. So I'm not like running to the podium to jam in a 7K defenseman on this slate.
Yeah, I agree largely with everything you just said. Like. I think I think I'm convincing myself a little bit that I could consider playing Draisaitl, like a Draisaitl Vogel Bouchard situation, but I don't know. I feel like I'm overthinking it. 23 hours
Yeah.
before a lock for no reason, and I'm probably going to come back on that. The Hyman thing is interesting. I think again, one thing I'll definitely note is double check the power play point props for these guys tomorrow. Hyman's been like double the price of everyone else, and he's been very, very useful. I think they try to get the puck down low to him when they can, and he's in that front normally. So I think you can definitely convince me as well that just a Hyman power play point. You mentioned this power play has been automatic. They're not going against a very good penalty kill, to no one's surprise. So yeah, I could be in on anything here. There's 5 guys to consider. Do whatever you want, and I'll probably tomorrow,
Yeah,
after much consideration, end up on something.
I don't think that's crazy to consider like Fogle, Draisaitl as a stack against Ottawa. They were at home, so I think it's reasonably similar. Maybe it'll be slightly more owned, on this 10-game slate. But on Saturday, McDavid was 37, Nuge 29, Hyman 20, Draisaitl was 17, McLeod 10, Fogle 8. So you're getting about half the ownership, and you can stack those guys and still get a good second stack with it. Like I don't think you can fit in Matthews and friends. Like you might be able to fit in one-off Matthews with Edmonton 2, but you certainly can't with Edmonton 1. So like if you wanted to try to thread them, I think that's a perfectly acceptable way to get a very good exposure to a very good line. I'll never say bad things about any line that Ryan McLeod's on, at a much more fair
Yeah,
salary than Edmonton 1. So no problems there.
right.
Let's kick off Boston and Arizona. I think I'm largely out on this spot. Boston on a back to back. Everything in my being wants to play 3K Dylan Gunther, getting power play 1 and rocking on a line with Matthias Michelli. Um, so that's the only allowance I think I'm making in this spot. I will deeply, deeply consider a one-off Dylan Gunther. I think he's a better version of Brennan Hoffman, who I think we talked about on Thursday's show. And Gunther got called up, and
A lot
he's
of
a premium prospect. And yeah, he's very, very good. So I'm deeply considering that. But really, this matchup screams sludge fest to me.
Ye- Yeah, I have no interest. I'm going to fade this game entirely, no matter. I mean, again, I get what you're saying about Gunther. If Boston comes out and isn't playing well and they take penalties and whatnot, like I think we could be looking at a situation where Gunther is very useful. So I agree. Mincelli is great. Jack McBain, whatever. I mean, that's your center here, though. Like, it just feels like this Arizona team has been good enough to where they should reward their team and their fans with like getting someone a little more useful. But yes, um, we can just move on. Boston's probably gonna be the same. It's they're tying anchors to guys like Pasternak. I don't know why they're not going back to Marchand, but I think that'd be the only way I'd even give it a second glance is if Pasternak and Marchand are together. If that happens, maybe again I'll give it a second glance.
Yeah, I slandered Geeky, and he immediately got a 3-point night last Thursday, and then followed it up with a goal and 4 shots as Boston scored 7 against my goalie on Saturday. So I'm sorry, Morgan. Please don't take it out on me. Nothing personal. Like it's fine, but Boston's just clearly in an inferior spot to the other high-end pieces on this slate, and I'd rather play Kucherov over Pasternak, and then obviously Matthews, McDavid are just stratospheres above projection-wise, in my opinion, which means that Pasternak will be a bit lower owned, but I think you know the drill at this point as far as tournaments go. So let's close it out with Ottawa and Calgary. Um, Ottawa's just dead.
I
I
hate,
don't know. Like, I
yeah.
mean, they got like, I don't know.
No, I
I
was
don't
gonna say like,
I just I don't know. Okay, go ahead.
no, you're saying I was just gonna say both teams feel just like holy crap, man. Like could it get it couldn't get too much worse for Ottawa. Like Ottawa actually is at the like a low point that's really like holy like this is and I don't know if you saw this, but like they're buying at the deadline. Like I'm not sure if you saw that whole thing that came out that they're like, oh, we just need a couple more dollars to get this thing to really pop off. And it's like, holy freaking crap, dude. Like you gotta cut it this
Ugh.
season. It's over. It's done. The Sabres are lapping you. Like, and then on the other hand, like the Flames have been fine. They're 39 points isn't laughably bad. It's pretty bad, right? I mean, it's not good. They're basically the Montreal Canadiens of the West. They're sixth in the Pacific, and they just dropped, a handout against Chicago, who really wasn't playing well. Like, it's just, it really is like, I feel like you could make the case on both
Yep.
sides. Like, there's no way either of these teams could show up and play flat. And yet, I just don't know how I'm playing this game. Like, I don't know what I think I'm not. I just don't care.
Yeah, fortunately, the prices don't really make sense here. So I think that's where we're gonna get away with just not even thinking about this game. I mean, like, like there's just everyone's above $5,000 who you really want to consider. So like, I think it's pretty easy to X these guys out and move on. But keep an eye. If like, let's see, yeah, if Coronado shows up or something, like maybe consider that. But I don't know. There's nothing there's no anticipation of any major shakeups or anything like that as far as the lines go, and so for that reason, I'm largely out. So top stacks,
I
guaranteed
think,
goals.
yeah, I guess again, I think the last note in this game is like both of these teams I am keeping a pretty big eye on just because they are giving so much minutes and run to their top guys because they're just floundering. They're floundering fish and they cannot afford to lose anymore, and they are. So all of the minutes are going to their top guys as they try to just scrape together something of value. I don't like this matchup for either team. I don't like this game. We can move on, but I do think it's like don't let this get in your head too much, and let's get to our top stacks. I will take Vancouver one. Not with Quinn Hughes, to be honest. I do get it. I think he's been really good as well. And you need that 3-point night from him, but I think if all three of these guys are getting there, then it's possible. But I think I'm gonna need that cap elsewhere.
Okay. No, I get it. I'm gonna go with I think taking advantage of these cheaper Anaheim prices could be fun. I don't know. Zegras has been kind of owned lately, so that worries me a bit. But Zegras, Terry, Minchikov, like I think their upside is there. I'm certainly not playing them in like single entry or anything like that. But betting on Minchikov before we see it, I think will be a key to taking advantage of this price tag. at just 3,800 right now. He's been there, done it, and clearly we know that Zegras and Terry have, literal slate breaking upside, even if they don't, project to do that all that often.
Yeah. There's not a ton of value on this, like mid-tier value on this slate that I love. So I think I am just going to go with, for now, the Draisaitl, McLeod, Vogel situation. Um, because altogether it is basically Buffalo too. I think I might ride that myself. I almost think maybe I could convince myself not to take all both wingers here and go with Bouchard if I obviously have the cap. Bouchard is obviously very useful, and like if Draisaitl is actually breaking the slate, Bouchard on the power play getting assists to him is very likely to be a primal cause for that to happen. Primal cause? I don't think that's how that works in English. Anyways, Matt, back to you.
I can't even think of the words that you would be trying to come
A
up with here.
primary cause?
All right, so the primary cause. Yeah, I think that's the right word. Okay. No, you're right.
Yeah, I
All
feel like
right.
I was trying to say it like singular,
So
like it's one of the primary causes. Okay, I'm gonna stop talking. I'll go.
yeah. So give me Kempe, Fiala, and let's just go Dubois because I honestly think we need to fill a center spot. But really, just the idea is stacking around LA using Kempe and Fiala for the power play. Like I think even Drew Doughty is okay. Like he's going to be unowned at 5,600. But they're clearly a bet on regression. You're going to see it in the sheet. You don't need to share that. But based on natural stat trick over the last 10 games, they basically have an expected goals for at 5-on-5 akin to the Edmonton Oilers. Like the difference between the Kings and the third place Stars is the same difference between Stars and league average over the last 10 games, which is about league average in all games. But over that span, instead of scoring 3.5 goals like they have expected, they scored 2.2 goals. Like they're just getting absolutely very unlucky. And I think Adrian Kempe is 7,300. He's going to be overlooked. And I really yes, I respect Tampa, but I respect LA, I think, a bit more. And the pricing on Fiala is ridiculous. So give me Kempe, Fiala, and then just fit in whoever sort of fits on LA around the rest of your lineup for my stack. I'll go Dubois for the purposes of this podcast, though.
Okay. I will start guaranteed goals with Gabe Velarde. We made a good case around this team already, and I get that Ehlers is probably easier to say is more prolific goal scorer and his shot rate's been there, but the expected goals, like Velarde, is in the dangerous areas. Like he is not only shooting a
Mhm.
decent bit, but they're very dangerous shots almost every time. I watched a lot of that Arizona game, and it seemed like this guy was
Yes.
just every shot was because it was like that could have been a goal every time. Goalie made a save. So, and I think that is just largely proven by the numbers.
All right. Yep, I like that. I'll take Philip Forsberg off the board. 7,800. Just talk about the Anaheim stack. I think this game has some good two-way potential. But yeah, I don't think I need to explain Phil Forsberg.
I'll take. You know what? You want me to get crazy? No, I'm just kidding. I'll take Oliver Bergstrom. Let me just take Bergstrom. That's the guy here for me.
Okay. And I will go Dylan Gunther. Just a really, really good prospect. Getting power play one. By the way, he took Michelli's power play job, so unfortunately that 5-on-5 power play correlation doesn't quite exist. But we know we love Michelli on this show. So I think he sets up Gunther for a nice goal here. Or the power play does, which, again, Boston's on a back-to-back. I'm not that scared of them defensively. So let's do it, Dylan. Anything else before we close out the show, DJ?
Nope. Let's close out the show. Let's get you to dinner. Let's get me to watching some games. And I might even throw on the national championship for a minute, just to see what all the hubbubaloo is about. It's the Wumbo versus the Mini.
Okay.
If you have watched SpongeBob.
Sure. All right. Thank you all for listening, and thank you to DraftKings for sponsoring this show. So be sure to check us out. It's over. I'll post a link to the YouTube in the podcast description if you do want to just throw a subscribe on the channel, and you can watch us that way. But as you've seen, this podcast will not be changing for better or for worse. So feel free to continue listening on your podcast app of choice. I'm at Fake Moods on Twitter. DJ's at DJ_Mitchell94, and the podcast is at Morningscape Pod. Please Leave a like and a review if you like this on either YouTube or on the podcast. We appreciate it, and that'll do it. So thank you all for listening. From Doug, from DJ, from myself, Edward Slate, everybody, and we will see ya.